Tom Bombadil is perhaps the most enigmatic character of The Lord of the Rings. His role within the story feels out of place. His powers are seemingly infinite, and he's apparently the oldest being that exists in Middle-earth. Both from a lore, but also a storytelling perspective, Tom Bombadil is a giant question mark that has persisted for over 70 years. J.R.R. Tolkien was very much aware of this, as fans would constantly send letters and openly theorize about what Tom actually was and what he represented. Tolkien himself was seemingly opposed to not only the theories proposed, but also the very premise of theorizing, or rather philosophizing, about Tom Bombadil altogether. In order to understand why, let us examine the character of Tom Bombadil and why Tolkien put him into the story in the first place. Tom Bombadil was first imagined by Tolkien in the early 1930s and quickly became one of his favorite characters alongside familiar faces such as Goldberry, Old Man Willow, and of course the Barrow-wights. His first published appearance came in the form of The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, a 1934 poem that was partly inspired by a real-life doll owned by his son Michael. The Hobbit came 2 years later, in 1936, and following its massive success, Tolkien's publishers requested a sequel. Funnily enough, in letter 19, Tolkien outright states to Allen and Unwin that he's not sure if he can think of any more Hobbit stories, and suggests making a story not about Bilbo, but about Tom Bombadil instead. This didn't pan out, obviously, but while conceptualizing the Lord of the Rings that we know today, Tolkien did not forget about Tom Bombadil. Before the baseline of the story was established, the names of our characters finalized, or even their relation to Bilbo made clear, Tolkien constructed the Tom Bombadil chapter. This is why it feels so out of place where the book itself is concerned, as it largely existed before the book itself. In essence, Tolkien wanted to achieve two things. He wanted to include Tom Bombadil, and he wanted an additional adventure for our protagonists, whoever they are, before they complete the first part of their journey. He didn't know what The Lord of the Rings was about yet, but he knew Tom Bombadil and his associates would be in it. Thus, this answers the first part of the enigma that is Tom Bombadil. Tolkien wanted him there, and so he was. The deeper question, however, is why he made Tom Bombadil so incredibly unique within his wider world building. As far as we're concerned, he's perhaps the most powerful character in the entire setting behind God himself. He is at least as old as the world, and his strength is so much higher than that of Sauron that he cannot be given the One Ring so as not to risk forgetting and losing it. Gandalf and Galadriel are afraid of its corruption, and yet Tom just treats it like a trinket. This, compounded by the mystery within Tolkien's writings, have given rise to countless theories throughout the years. People have theorized that Tom is Eru Ilúvatar, or God, that he's Tolkien himself, or that he's the personification of nature or the music of the Ainur, that he serves as a contrast to Ungoliant, who is likewise theorized to represent the Discord of Melkor, even though he was added to the story before Tolkien ever connected The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit to the unpublished Silmarillion. People have thought that he's one of the Valar, or a very powerful Maya, that he's an Ainu with control over time itself. The theories go on, and despite the overall premise of the video, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Middle-earth is mysterious, and to still be discussing a mystery 70 years later and its lore implications is very telling of Tolkien's skill and interest we still have in Middle-earth. The thing is, none of those things are true. Not only are they not true, but they often go against Tolkien himself and his vision for his world. And perhaps they go a little too far, or miss the point entirely. In letter 153, he outright says, "I don't think Tom needs philosophizing about, and is not improved by it. But many have found him an odd, or indeed discordant ingredient. In historical fact, I put him in because I had already invented him independently and wanted an adventure on the way. But I kept him in, and as he was, because he represents certain things otherwise left out. I do not mean him to be an allegory, or I should not have given him so particular, individual, and ridiculous a name, but allegory is the only mode of exhibiting certain functions. He is then an allegory or an exemplar, a particular embodying of pure, real natural science, the spirit that desires knowledge of other things, their history and nature, because they are other and wholly independent of the inquiring mind, a spirit coeval with a rational mind and entirely unconcerned with doing anything with the knowledge, zoology and botany, not cattle breeding or agriculture. In letter 144, Tolkien further explains his vision for Tom's inclusion in the story. As a story, I think it is good that there should be a lot of things unexplained, especially if an explanation actually exists. And I have perhaps from this point of view erred in trying to explain too much and give too much past history. Many readers have, for instance, rather stuck at the Council of Elrond, and even in a mythical age there must be some enigmas, as there always are. Tom Bombadil is one, intentionally. You can see that Tolkien created a deliberate mystery and enigma simply from the absurd scale of it all. He never answers clearly about what or who he is, only through riddles. He is fatherless. He remembers the coming of the first Valar and the Dark Lord Morgoth with the creation of the world. The answer is simple. Goldberry says it clearly. He is, she answers Frodo. Many people have taken that as a reference to God. I am that I am. In letter 153, Tolkien outright and definitively disputes that very theory. Ultimately, I think that theorizing about Tom Bombadil's position within the lore itself is not going to lead anywhere. Tolkien wanted Tom to mean something to him personally, and in doing so, he further embellished the character for the sake of the book's mystery. Perhaps there does exist a perfect world-building explanation in regards to what Tom actually is, but whatever that explanation is, Tolkien did not want us finding out. Thus, I doubt any mention of his background was a trail of clues leading to an intentional conclusion on Tolkien's part. We have no definitive evidence on anything, and in fact most theories treat Tolkien's world as this perfectly consistent narrative from beginning to end, meaning that part C of the story was conceptualized with A and B in mind. This is not the case, however, and Tolkien came up with ideas that he had to later retroactively connect all the time. Not to mention the issue with trying to solve the Bombadil mystery through a Silmarillion that was not published with Tolkien's consent, and therefore not completely aligned with his vision. Where I would like to focus on is what Tolkien himself said. In the first letter we read, 153, Tolkien gives us an idea of what Tom means to him personally. This conceptualization may be connected to a letter written 20 years prior, numbered 19, which we mentioned earlier. In it, he specifically says, "Do you think Tom Bombadil, the spirit of the vanishing Oxford and Berkshire countryside, could be made into the hero of a story? Or is he, as I suspect, fully enshrined in the enclosed verses? Still, I could enlarge the portrait." The earliest understanding of Bombadil, and the one closest to his first integration into the Hobbit sequel, which later became The Lord of the Rings, was that Tom represented the spirit of the Oxford and Berkshire countryside. Ultimately, though, this remains a personal revelation found in a 90-year-old letter not meant for our eyes. In the end, I think what it comes down to is this. Tolkien added Tom Bombadil to the story for his own personal, out-of-text reasons as a writer. He claimed that Tom was an enigma or mystery, and in letter 143, he mentioned the idea of mysteries that exist without explanations. If an answer even does exist, I do not think it was ever meant to be solved, and was instead included to deepen the feeling of the world, while adding an additional adventure to the story. And Disappointingly or not, that is that. Any other far-fetched theory may be interesting to ponder, but it's missing the point that Tom is there for Tolkien's own personal reasons and not necessarily for you and I to discover. A massive thank you to my channel members, and thank you very much for watching.